We've got breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ from college basketball, where West Virginia will suspend men's head coach Bob Huggins for using a homophobic slur on a radio show in Cincinnati on Monday. He'll also receive a $1 million salary reduction and will have to partake in sensitivity training. The Hall of Fame coach released a statement apologizing for the incident, saying, quote, "I used a completely insensitive and abhorrent phrase that there is simply no excuse for," end quote. Huggins has been the head coach at West Virginia, his alma mater, since 2007, and is the program's all-time wins leader. All right, for more, let's now welcome in CBS Sports HQ college basketball writer Matt Norlander. Matt, let's start with your reaction here. Are you surprised at the fact that he's going to be suspended, and what was it that you expected here?
This, in speaking with sources in the near 2 days since this became a massive national sports story, the expectation was that Huggins, in speaking to my sources, was that he would not be fired. And part of that was because those in the athletic department did not want to fire Bob Huggins, and that this was going to be raised to the university board of directors and the presidential level. It has. So I'm not surprised that this is the reported outcome for Huggins in receiving a suspension. The actual details therein, I'm a little bit surprised that the suspension, frankly, seems fairly light, considering he used an anti-gay slur twice. He used it twice. And did so with almost a casual cruelty to it. The reported sensitivity training that he's going to be going through is obviously going to be part of that as well. I'd like to know what that training involves. Some transparency from the university in terms of what Huggins will actually have to go through, I think would help this situation. If you're going to keep him on as the head coach, and also with the salary reduction, and I'll get there in just a second, then let's really own this and have Huggins speak to, and with frequency, just what exactly he's going to do. And if he's going to atone for this, he gets to keep his job. So he gets to win in this scenario. He is not being fired. He is not being forced to resign. But if that is going to be the case, then there's certainly more public atonement that needs to be accounted for. And I'll be interested to see from Huggins' side and from the university side just exactly what those details entail in the weeks and months to come.
I mean, is this essentially, Matt, just $1 million fine at this point?
Well, a suspension is also a suspension, and as we get more and more details about what exactly Huggins will be removed from his team duties, that is part of it. How about this, though? If they're going to fine him $1 million, and we'll see if the university decides to pivot in this direction as well, but take that $1 million that was going to go to Bob Huggins and instead donate it to charities and causes that push for more equality for LGBTQ plus causes locally, nationally. Use that money, take this really terrible incident on behalf of Bob Huggins that has stained his name and his image, and use it for some sort of good. If you're going to dock $1 million from his salary and essentially save the school $1 million, no, take that money and donate it to causes that help eradicate and eliminate the hate speech against LGBTQ, the LGBTQ plus community in this country there. So yeah, that's a big part of it as well. No doubt about it, West Virginia will face some blowback for this decision as well, which I think is entirely fair. There were plenty of people calling for him to be fired for using that slur twice over Cincinnati airwaves. And so this is the decision they've decided to make. And I anticipate that this will be the last season for Bob Huggins at West Virginia. I thought that was the case heading before this even happened. My understanding was that, somewhat quietly, this would indeed be Huggins' final season as they made the transition as the Hall of Famer set to turn 70. I think this incident only reinforces that to be the likelihood come next April.
Matt, in a larger picture perspective, is there a chance that this could have a negative impact on the program from a recruitment standpoint, from a player standpoint, that, maybe Huggins could lose some players because of this?
We'll see whether or not this has any impact on the roster as it stands right now. The transfer portal is due to close later this week. Certainly it will impact the program. I mean, just speaking as someone who covers college basketball nationally and even checks in with coaches with frequency in the middle of May, which is, we're really entering into the heart of the offseason. I mean, just this week I've heard from two coaches removed from this situation entirely, who have just brought up the fact that they have been negatively recruited against for this reason or that reason. And so for Huggins in West Virginia, yes, doing this puts them, understandably so, in a very precarious position overall. And as for the roster as it stands, I don't know if this is going to lead to anyone leaving the team. Certainly, locally, he had enough support that this would, they surveyed the area. They said, we've got a Hall of Fame coach. He has, he's done plenty of good in all of these ways, but this is a really big negative, and this outweighed that. And so he'll wind up staying on, but this will amount to one of the bigger stories of the offseason in college basketball, obviously. And then we'll linger into next season. There will certainly there will be a debt that has to be paid on some sort of public level for Huggins and West Virginia as this goes into next season, and will be part of, the winter of his legacy there at that school.
CBS Sports HQ college basketball writer Matt Norlander joining us to discuss the breaking news that West Virginia head coach Bob Huggins is to be suspended from the program and fined $1 million. Thank you very much, Matt. In terms of Huggins' profile, you heard Matt talk about, where this could stand on his legacy. Certainly not something that he will look back on fondly, but 41 seasons as head coach, 16 at West Virginia, third all-time in Division I in terms of wins. You see 935, 26 NCAA tournament appearances, including 2 Final Fours, and he is, of course, a 2022 Basketball Hall of Fame inductee. We're following breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. West Virginia are set to suspend men's basketball head coach Bob Huggins for using a homophobic slur on a radio show in Cincinnati on Monday. He's also to receive $1 million salary reduction and will have to take part in sensitivity training. Now, the Hall of Fame coach released a statement apologizing for the incident, saying, quote, "I used completely insensitive and abhorrent phrasing that is simply no excuse for." Huggins has been the head coach at West Virginia, his alma mater, since 2007. He is the program's all-time wins leader. All right, for more on the Huggins situation, let's now welcome in writer Mike Hazassa from 24/7 Sports. He is in Morgantown, West Virginia. Mike, you're there. What's been the reaction to the comments that Huggins made and the prospect of what his punishment could and or should be?
Yeah, Jeremy, really popular, really important, and albeit powerful person here at his alma mater for 16 years right now. And I think a lot of disappointment and maybe despair is even a better word over what he said. The fact that, it does appear to have taken a personal toll on him. I'm not sure that really resonates with everybody, but here certainly that does. And, for a couple of days, there was a looming possibility that this could indeed be the end of his career. And now that you do have what appears to be a resolution coming here imminently from the university, I think it's a preparation that you're going to have, competing forces here about that's too much and that's not enough. And that's going to be conversations that are not equal, I'm sure. And the university got to figure out how to thoroughly and truthfully explain that to people. But really a mixed bag of emotions here for what people did not want to see happen that ultimately did happen with Huggins on the radio. And then now people did not want to see him go and maybe did not want to see him punished so severely. But I'm sure there's going to be people who are saying this is not nearly enough for what he said and what that did.
In terms of the transfer portal in this offseason, they got a point guard, they got a center, they got another guard. According to the 24/7 Sports metrics, the number 1 NIL class. How much did that factor into him staying and not being fired, do you think?
That's a great point, Jeremy. I think the momentum they had this offseason, really Bob Huggins changing and adapting and evolving, leaning into the new way of recruiting in the transfer portal, making West Virginia a destination that really maybe the record and the success had not indicated it could be. I think that did him tremendous favors this offseason. If he was coming off a number of maybe mediocre or substandard seasons relative to his career and performance, which that has been the case here. They made it to the tournament last year. They did not win their first game. I think if he just does that and they run it back with a similar cast and not this transfer portal haul, there is probably substantially less incentive and motivation for people to really rally around keeping him here. And seeing what a Hall of Fame coach with 935 wins can do with a talent he's assembled here. I don't know how that's not part of the metric here.
Mike, it's to be suspended at this point, so we don't know how long the suspension will be, when it's going to kick in. But when it does, who is the one that takes over for him on the bench there?
Right now, I would think probably just due to seniority, it would be Ron Everhart. He's been a head coach at McNeese State, at Duquesne, at Northeastern before. He has over 270 wins as a head coach. He's a winning record. He's been here for quite some time. He's known Huggins since they were in high school. So if you had to deputize a lieutenant, probably him. They also have DeMar Johnson, a former lottery pick, Josh Eilert, someone who's been here with Huggins since he first started here 16 years ago. So no shortage of people who Huggins knows and would trust in this situation here too. I think maybe the length of the suspension could also be important too. If it's a longer time, maybe it is Ron Eberhardt. If it's a shorter amount of time, perhaps it's Josh Eilert. Those are details they're going to have to suss out. Also including how long is the suspension. We've heard one number, 3 games initially. That may be something that people are seeking to extend just because of the initial feedback to that number.
Yeah, and of course, the $1 million reduction in salary as well. Mike Kazas, our 24/7 sports writer in Morgantown, West Virginia, giving us his insight into the Bob Huggins 2B suspension that was announced today. Thanks very much, Mike, for hopping on with us. In terms of the most wins among active coaches, you see Huggins leads the list there at 935, a 2022 College Basketball Hall of Fame inductee, and set to be suspended and facing a reduction in salary for using homophobic slurs on a radio show